Welcome, everyone. We will begin the webinar on post-repair inspection. I'm Melissa Joles with RDA Impact. Mark Olson, CEO of VECO Experts, is your presenter today. The presentation will take approximately 45 minutes. We are recording it and we'll post it on our YouTube channel. If you do have questions during the webinar, you can type them in the chat box at the bottom right of your screen, and Mark will answer them during the presentation. Now, I'll turn it over to Mark.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and just want to give a shout out to my Northwest compadres at WESCO. Just a little side note on me, I'm from Seattle, and my first pint of paint that I ever bought when I owned my little shop was from Andy and Betty of WESCO, which, if you don't know who that is, that's the predecessors of Lloyd from WESCO. So anyways, kind of a Northwest thing, so just shout out to you guys. Hey, so a little bit of background on me. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mark Olson, and I started out washing cars in a body shop, worked my way from there into cutting in some parts, worked my way from there into cutting cars in half and welding them together, became a journey level collision repair technician. I was one of the Northwest leading iCar instructors for almost 20 years. I was iCar Instructor of the Year back in 2000. Wound up writing a number of programs for iCar, so been around that for quite a while. And I'm also a former insurance adjuster. I worked for Allstate for 1 year. Didn't own the company, just worked there, so just don't pick on me too bad. I also own one of the largest shops in Seattle on and off for about 10 years, and sold that out, and I started a company called Future Forensics, in which we do automotive damage forensic investigations and courtroom testifying and all that, and I started that in 1997. In investigating car crashes and improper repairs, it became very important to help the shops, which at that point, I founded a company called Verifax in 2002, and then in 2016, I left Verifax, divested completely, and started VECO Experts. So that's a little scenario on me. I've been around the block, been kicked around the block like many of you on the call. So today, we're going to talk about post-repair inspections, and what I'm going to be giving you today is real-world issues that are going on, some examples, some pictures, and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to talk about there's kind of a symbiotic relationship to the shop, the communications, the repairs, and how things go. So I'm going to kind of walk you through that. Also, what a post-repair inspection company would look for. So this is by no means a presentation that's going to have you see this and go, okay, I'm going to jump in the business of post-repair inspection, although it might tip your appetite into doing that. But really, this presentation is all about how do you work with your organization and how you work, and whether you're a supplier, a jobber, or you're the shop or some other, it all becomes part of the same thing. So I'm just going to jump in on this really very quickly. There's my logo, and really our whole mantra at VECO is you got to get it right the first time. You don't have a second chance to get it right the first time. So how do you get it right the first time? Well, let's talk about and walk through a couple of things just to give you an idea. Now, this is interactive, so I'd like everybody to grab a pencil, piece of paper, pen, whatever, and I really invite you to participate in what I'm going to do here, okay? So here's a quick check-in. So this is a 2017 Nissan Sentra, and on the rear bumper cover, there is a scratch. Now, I couldn't find a bumper cover that had a scratch that I wanted online, so that's just a black dot on the bumper. Doesn't go into the substrate. It's just, you would say, what it really kind of needs back 25 years ago is paint. So I want you to write down real quickly what you would do to that, and then for the repairs, the customer comes to your shop, you go, oh, we're going to touch it up with paint, or cover it with a band-aid, or replace the bumper cover, or replace the car. Write down whatever you would do, and then approximately how much money you think you would charge for it. And then right below that, put your initials, like you're renting a car. Just put your initials real quickly. I'll give you about 10 seconds to do that. Okay. So as a quick check-in, one of the things we have to do on a post-repair inspection is it always starts with the OEM repairs, whatever is required. So safety belt items, test drives, seat belts, airbags, weld tests. You know, and we actually offer another class on quality process. It's called our 10-point. But to give you an example, to put a quarter panel on a car, you're going to probably need about 6 to 8 different test welds. Now, many people think, okay, we'll just do one test weld and that's good for the whole car, but it's actually not. Of course, corrosion protection. Now I'm going to talk to the suppliers right now. If you want to see who's repairing cars correctly, also do a double check for yourself, for those of you that own a shop or run shops. If you're not buying 1 can of cavity wax per technician per week, you are probably not repairing cars correctly. I'm going to say it one more time. If you're not buying 1 can of cavity wax per technician per week, you probably are not repairing cars correctly. That's a whole nother class we teach. Just get that. Also, ADAS resets, electronic resets, battery disconnects, bolt torque scanning, OEM information and research, and pre-measuring the vehicle. Now, one of the things is, now let's go back to this slide here, the quick check-in. Some of you probably put that you were going to sand that down and paint it, and it's going to be about $750 to repair, or $1,000 or whatever. Some of you might have put down, touch it up. Some might have said put a Band-Aid on. But actually, the proper way to do it, if you did the OEM research, you would actually find that Nissan said you cannot repair that because it's in the blind spot monitor area, and it has to be replaced with an OEM bumper cover. Now, if somebody were to send me and wanted me to jump into a post-repair inspection, the first thing I'm going to ask for is the file. Give me the file. And if I look in there and it says repair bumper cover, it's an automatic improper repair. I don't even have to look at the car. I can do a paper audit. So let's kind of walk through this real quickly. So we look at it at VECO as a very simple 10-step repair process. So now I invite you to consider, and everybody on this call in this webinar, you're going to wind up getting a copy or having access to a copy of this PowerPoint, first of all, and it's also going to be a video. I invite you to show it to your staff. Because if you were to look at your shop in these 10 simple steps, so if you bring a vehicle in and you do proper scanning, the proper pre-check, you get procedures when you write the estimate, not later on, but when you write the estimate. So in other words, when you grab the estimate of the vehicle and you need to aim the headlights, you pull the procedure for that, and you find out that you have to aim the headlights, put it on a level floor, check the air pressure in all 4 tires, put a 150-pound person in the seat, empty the trunk, and make sure the tank of gas is full. If you had that procedure when you wrote the estimate, you'd likely get all those things on the estimate. If you don't have the procedures when you write the estimate, you're probably not. Now, the point is that I could go through that. When I'm at Collision Hub, I'm one of the hosts of Collision Repair University Live at collisionhub.com. So go out there and watch the videos. We did a Ford Explorer replacement of a door. There was 14 different OEM procedures for that. How are you going to write the estimate without them and do it properly? Then the next thing, all we got to do is give the procedures to the technician. That includes sublet. So say that you're putting a windshield in a car. Wouldn't you want to give those instructions to the sublet person on how to actually put a windshield in a Subaru, for example? Also, we want to make sure the technician follows the procedures. Now, if you look at number 1 through 4 in your shop, you might say that you're doing a really good job at scanning, getting most of the procedures, technicians getting the stuff, and they're following them. I invite you to go back to your shop today and look at that. You're probably not. I'm going to say it again, you're probably not. Then we're going to do proper welds, proper corrosion protection, back to that cavity wax thing and weld-through primers and stuff, proper use of the quality control sheet, which we offer a class on that, proper refinish, proper use of an intake SOP, and proper vehicle protection. Now, if we did all of those 10 things consistently on every car, every single time, we would have a very consistent collision repair process. Now, VECO Experts, we're in shops all over the United States every single month. I think last month, I tallied for the year that we were working with about 800 shops around the United States. Based on that, we have never been in a shop yet that's doing all 10 of those correctly on the first time. Most shops are running about 40%. So I invite you to consider that maybe, unless you're an exception, you might be having that issue. So post-repair inspections, how does it start? It's really simple. Something major is wrong, but normally it's how something minor is wrong. And I'm going to show you some examples of that. The car doesn't drive the same. The car doesn't look right. Speed of trust is not established. Now, there's a book. It's called The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. And I invite everybody on this call to buy that book. And I don't get any royalties from it. Just read the book, loved it, and went, you know what? If people just read this book, they would not have as many comebacks. So you don't have the speed of trust established. The people don't trust you. And in fact, when people call us and say, hey, we're having a problem with our car, oftentimes I say, what shop fixed it? And they cannot remember the name of the shop. How did the shop keep their car for 3 weeks and the customer doesn't even know the name of the shop? It will shock you. It's taken back to the shop and not handled properly, or told they cannot find or see the problem. How many times have a customer come in and said, I got this problem? You're like, well, we can't find it. And so you give them their car back. That's a phone call probably to somebody like me. Or the customer's just one of those customers. And you know what I'm talking about. The customer you just want to get rid of. Customer goes to trade the car in, looked at by a dealer. That happens. Customer contest a diminished value inspector, and they look at it. And I don't care who you are. I could repair a car, you could find something wrong. You can repair a car, I can find something wrong. When you get somebody that knows what they're looking at, they're going to find something. So we got to somehow eliminate them finding the big stuff, and then it's just like the pinstripes falling off and we fix it really quick. Customer goes in for an oil change, and now the technician that's changing the oil can see the underside a lot better, and they call it out. Or the customer's neighbor, friend looks at it, or they got a performance calibration or dash light problem. So that kind of covers, that's kind of how it starts. So what do they look for? How about anything? Anything they can find. You know, how many of you have ever had you go to buy a house and you hire a home inspector? Their job is to find what's wrong. A post-repair inspector, their job is to find something wrong. That's how they justify their existence. So, you know, color match, panel gap, seam sealer, corrosion protection, OEM. That's the big one. I could pull, 14 things on a door on a Ford Explorer and probably find you didn't do them all. So now you didn't do that. What else did you not do? Test welds, clamp marks, operations of items, frame printouts, scans, dash lights, overspray. I mean, pretty much anything they can find, they're going to call out. What tools do they use? Now, I invite you to consider that if somebody's going to use certain tools for their inspection, I invite you to consider that maybe you might want to buy some of the same tools yourself, such as on the top left here, this is a magnet type gauge for measuring the paint. This is an electronic. This is another electronic. So there's 3 different styles. All 3 of them work. This is a boroscope, connects right to your phone from, you just go to Amazon. They're like $12. Different flashlights, boroscopes, different gauges, mirrors, that kind of thing. You should have all of those things in your shop to be able to do your quality control as it's going through the shop and your final quality control. I invite you to take any car that's in your shop today, wait till it's completely done, and look at it like the customer said, look at everything to make sure everything's perfect. You're going to find things wrong with it. That's what a post-repair inspector is going to find. Also scanning, different kinds of tools out there. About the file. This is the one thing shops don't do well. First of all, I call it the bulletproof file. That's actually, I should have put it on my my PowerPoint here. It's actually a trademarked name now, as of about 2 weeks ago. But bulletproof file is your file bulletproof? Now we do a 2-hour class on how to create a bulletproof file, and you can look us up on the website or whatever and find out about that. The bottom line is, do you have lots of pictures? Because if something were to happen and you called me and said, I'm in trouble, can you help me? The first thing I'm going to ask for is your file, and if your file has to stand on its own. So pictures, conversations, repair methodologies, in-process notes, supplements, printouts, sublet invoices, products used. I actually looked at a shop in St. Louis, and I can't name the name of it, but shop in St. Louis. I taught them how to build a bulletproof file. They have probably, let me see, there was 147 pictures in the file. All they did was put a fender on the car. 147 pictures in the file, and the file was a little bit bigger than 1 gig of information to have a bulletproof file. I can tell you their file is pretty bulletproof. Now, this is how it goes. Now, this is a real world. This really happened. This is how it goes. Okay, so this vehicle has been to a DRP shop. So I went to a DRP shop, and the customer didn't like how something was. I don't remember exactly what it was. Customer was then took the car back to the DRP shop, and they still didn't make them happy because they didn't fix it all. So this is the car after it's been repaired twice, and it doesn't look bad, and the repair is down to the front end on this side right here. So it doesn't look horrible from 10 feet away. So this was the thing that got him in trouble. Now, if you look at this, this is the rear door. So if we go back, that is at the top right here on the top of the pillar, right in the cab corner up at the top. That's where we're looking. Okay, right there. What that is, that's where they painted the outside, and they didn't paint it all the way inside, which is the right way. But at a minimum, they didn't take some rubbing compound, at least smooth off where they actually had their foam tape. So that's how it started. The customer got upset, went to another shop and said, hey, look what they did. And once you get another expert looking, here it goes. So the original shop DRP estimate was $4,150. The original completed repair was $63.51. Now the customer wasn't happy, and so the shop repainted it under warranty. Customer's still not happy with that line that was in the door jamb, and sent it to their shop. The items noted, and the insurance company called, and the insurance inspected it and redetermined that it would cost $1,700 to repair. So the insurance company goes, yeah, you're right. Re-repair it, $1,700. The re-repair shop that it was at said, I need $5,000 to fix it, $5,029. So then what the customer did is they invoked what's called their right to appraisal. So the original re-repair estimate from so now they got to hire an independent appraiser. And the independent appraiser came out and wrote an estimate to re-repair it for $4,200. So now the insurance company said $1,700. They hired somebody who now said $4,200, but the shop was still at $5,000. So that seems pretty easy with the difference, right? Well, the customer had to hire somebody, so they hired us. So the independent appraiser wrote some remarks. Now, imagine this if this was your shop and the independent appraiser wrote this about you, and this was your direct repair relationship with the insurance company. Unable to confirm the reason for removal of the front and back glass. Okay, fine, whatever, that's easy. Inspection, undercovered, the right front fender apron was only roughed out, leaving obvious kinks in a buckle from the incomplete repair. The new OE hood was refinished without applying seam sealer. The inspection uncovered right outdoor aperture at the lower edge was done incorrectly. The cab corner was not addressed, along with R&I of adjacent components, and apparent second attempt to repair of the A-pillar and blends resulted in a heavy hard line inside the aperture jamb. That's what I pointed out to you. And a review of the supplement of record 3 verified R&I of the rear bumper, bed assembly, and right step side were not performed. So basically, their independent appraiser has now thrown their shop under the bus for fraud and improper repair. I got involved. So that seems pretty straightforward, right? Let's go a little further. So I get involved, and they had replaced the core support at the original repair, and this is the bottom of it. And so I never actually personally inspected this vehicle. I didn't need to. I said, send me all the pictures. So they sent me all the pictures. So this right here is an edge weld. It's an improper weld. You can see that. But what I got really curious about was this kind of, copperish, rusty looking stuff. So is that rust? Or is that copper weld through primer? And there's also no cavity wax. So I saw this one picture, and I told the shop, I called them and said, I know what you're thinking. I'm going to blow this out of proportion. Buy this car. I'd never looked at it. I just saw a few pictures. Based on this picture, I said, buy the car. Of course, the shop told me to stick it because I didn't know what I was talking about. And then here's some of the other pictures. No seam sealer. So now we've got rust in between the seams. So it's complete re-repair. So now the next step is take the car apart and re-repair it. See the improperly filled weld here. See all the copper weld through primer sprayed. In fact, they even sprayed some on the frame. That was nice of them. And so what's the problem with copper weld through primer? Well, full teardown analysis now, the shop said now it's $8,300. The independent appraiser disagreed and now is at $4,700. So the independent appraiser stated that taking the car apart did not need to be done because copper weld through primer is an acceptable alternative to zinc. Further, the hood could simply be seam sealed over the new paint. Couple things. If the hood needs seam sealer, you got to put seam sealer over the top of E-coat and not fresh paint because the seam sealer can't go over paint. So now we either have to strip the hood or replace the hood. Well, their appraiser said that didn't need to be done. And so I started pulling some evidence. So I asked the independent appraiser a couple questions, pretty simple. So I said, are you saying it's okay to ignore the OEM? This is a Toyota. Toyota says don't use copper. Said, I'm saying it's okay to ignore the OEM and fix the car with copper. And he says, it does not say you can't, and it's the industry standard to use copper. I said, where'd you get that information from? He goes, an iCar instructor told me both work, and I talked to the copper rep, and he said it was good. So the next question I said is, so an iCar instructor trumps the OEM? He wouldn't answer that question. Now, here's the stupid part. I know the iCar instructor. I know what the iCar instructor said because I know what the class says because I co-wrote the class. So I know that he was BSing me. And so I actually gave him the instructor manual. I just printed off and said, where in the instructor manual does it say that? He wouldn't answer me. I said, so are you saying it's okay to fix the vehicle however the shop wants and you can ignore the OEM? Of course, he wouldn't answer me. So I pulled some information from Toyota. Toyota says right there, zinc-rich well-through primer applied to the mating surfaces, blah, 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 blah. They wrote an article about it saying don't use zinc. Here's how it resolved. So the total amount, remember I told the shop to buy the car. Insurance company said, no, it's $1,700, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so the total amount written for the repair of the vehicle and the costs were awarded. So the repair turned out, my estimate was $10,197, plus storage for the 3 months it took them to sort it out was $1,440, plus a rental car for the customers, $2,430. Total award by an umpire was $14,057, and the truck was only worth 11 grand. Moral of the story, insurance company got involved and said, don't worry, we're going to handle this. Don't talk to the shop. Shop decided they were going to trust the insurance company. So what did the shop get? They could have bought the car and had a parts truck or whatever, or they could have, bought it and sold it as salvage or whatever. And so they could have bought it for 11, sold it for 8, and cost them 3 grand. Actually, it cost them $14,000 and their DRP to do this. Okay, so now here's another one. So a vehicle's damaged and it's towed to a shop. So I get a phone call. The shop repaired the vehicle. The owner complained of a vibration at 50. So they sent the tires out to get balanced. The vibration was still there. They sent to another shop and they pulled the frame and said everything was good and the vibration was still there. They sent it to another shop. The inspecting shop did some minor repairs and still had the vibration. So after 3 shops have looked at something, wouldn't you agree that they're not addressing the problem of the vibration? So they sent it to another shop and they refused to do any repairs. So finally, the vehicle owner hires an attorney, invokes the appraisal clause, and hires an appraiser, and the insurance company hires me. I pulled up to this truck and immediately said, this truck's a total loss from this view right here. Now, you might be saying, how can I say that so obviously from pulling into the shop? Now, remember, let's go back. Shop did the repair. They pulled it. Another shop pulled it again. Another shop pulled it again. This car has been on a frame rack 3 times being pulled. Look at how that bed is sitting on that truck. It is twisted still. That's frame damage. Now, there was a lot of other issues too, like they bent the brand new bumper brackets to make the bumper try and fit the car. They slotted out the fender to try and make it fit over here. They put the rocker panel on in the wrong spot, and they didn't weld bond it like Chrysler said it's a Dodge, so you're supposed to do that. So my response was, let's do it. So bumper brackets bent to fit the frame, core support moved to compensate for the bent frame, sheet metal maxed out to compensate for the bent frame, rocker panel required a replacement due to not following the OEM, frame twisted and listed to replace. So I said, let's replace the frame. How many times can you bend it like a paperclip? And the vibration was never addressed, believe it or not. It actually turned out to be just for kicks and giggles. I said, let's balance the drive line and see what happens. That's what it was. So insurance company totaled it and made the original shop buy the truck. Here's another one. And this is the epitome of blowing a customer off and having things go wrong really fast. So here's a Honda CR-V, and the scenario is, and this is the car after it's done and complete. So the initial complaint was the interior cargo net was not brown, it was black. So this is a Honda certified shop. The technician had an extra, the cargo net comes around, you just kind of flip it around, just a little screw-on plastic piece. Well, basically, they couldn't find the brown one that it came with, so the guy had an extra, threw a black one in. So the customer saw that. And as the customer's looking at the car, the hatch itself started falling down just a little bit. She goes, my hatch is weak. My hatch shock is weak. So the shop said they would get her a new hook and ordered it and told her the liftgate shock was not related. So they blew her off. So she already had an injury and an $8,000 repair, so she had an attorney. So the attorney suggested diminished value. That's when our company got involved. And the customer was a claimant. So we go out and look at it. And again, if you get somebody looking, you're going to find stuff. So here is the frame rail and the rear body panel they put on that they didn't weld back on correctly. There's no seam sealer on the bottom edge here. The floor color and everything doesn't look right. So it's a pretty reputable shop. I knew who they were, and they said they were going to take care of it. So I called them up, said, here's a few pictures, call the customer, take care of it. So they said it was repaired. And the problem is the shop now had created a monster because the customer now was going to look. So she found some more stuff, and now she's talking about stuff on the front, which in my opinion wasn't even related. But you know that customer, you get them created, and away they go. So finally the customer, after a couple times back at the shop, gave up. But started bad-mouthing the shop on Google, Yelp, etc. Then the rains came, and they noticed the trunk was full of water. Took it to a water leak shop, took it apart, and their seam sealer was leaking between the seam, and it became a complete structural re-repair. So here's a couple more things. Here's their floor color matched to the floor, not quite the same. You can see where the water was in here. There's the frame rail that they re-repaired the second time. There's the seam sealer they put over self-etching primer. Again, back to our corrosion protection class. Can't put seam sealer over self-etching primer. Problem is, you're going to walk back in your shop and you're probably going to find self-etching primer that your body techs are spraying on before they put seam sealer. Again, that's not this class, just telling you what can go wrong. You can see in here, no quality control, bad welds, that kind of thing. That's just how the car is, okay? So, close-up stuff. So, here's the resolution. And I get, in trouble for doing this, but I told the car shop to buy the car. They said no. So the garage keepers got involved, and they only paid for the water leak damage. Original insurance company got involved, and when they got involved, they wanted, they wanted to see what did they not pay for originally, and there's some things they didn't pay for originally. The insurance commissioner was notified, and the attorney general was involved. The vehicle owner's insurance stepped in, which wasn't even involved at all, and they totaled it to avoid bad faith. The re-repair estimate on this was replace rear body panel, 2 quarter panels, floor, 2 frame rails, and the roof. It was a total. Now the car's been sitting in a shop taken apart for 8 months because the shop didn't deal with it. Customer claimed loss of use for 8 months. The shop had to pay that. Consumer protection claim against the shop. Insurance, owner's insurance hit was bad faith, which they had to pay treble damages. And the shop was removed from the DRP program from the customer's insurance company, which was Geico. The original insurance company that referred it there was USAA. They were off that program, and they were a Honda certified shop, and they lost that. Shop is now filed for bankruptcy. 1 car. And it was a pretty reputable shop. Can't tell you who it is. Okay? So that doesn't really happen very often, right? How many of you guys heard about this one? The driver sues Tesla Service King over a Utah Autopilot crash. And this is in 2018. This hit. This is from Body Shop Business or Fender Bender, or I don't know, which one it was, Repair Driven News. We heard about it, and it disappeared immediately. What do you think happened? Well, I can tell you what happened. They paid him off, and it went away. This is one of those ones where the shop fixed it, and they put a bumper cover on. They sued Tesla. Tesla said, well, Service King bought a bumper cover, and did they do the proper calibrations, etc.? You should sue them, and away it went. So anyways, I don't have any resolution, not a dig on Tesla or Service King, just a news article. So this is another one. Things get big really fast. Ohio body shops lose the appeal for the attorney's fees. This is very simple. Ohio body shop loses it, and what happened is the shop glued on a rear body panel to a car, that Nissan right there in the picture, and when they glued on the rear body panel, they didn't do it correctly, and they wanted diminished value, so they called the diminished value person. They came out and looked at it and said, okay, something's not quite right. So they called in the post-repair inspector, which is Larry Montanez of P&L Consulting. When he looked at it, and he lives in Brooklyn, New York. He went to Ohio. He looked at it and said, oh my gosh, they glued this on. They didn't weld it like Nissan said. And basically, when it wove its way through court, cost the shop $105,000. That's a real story right there. And you can see right here, this is the $105,000 picture. They didn't seam seal the lower. So when they called the shop and said, well, you didn't seam seal the lower, and they said, no, because we glued it on. They actually just admitted they fixed the car wrong. So here's what the judge said. The evidence showed that repairs to the rear body panel were not performed in a workmanlike manner because they were not performed according to the manufacturer's spec, because the structural bonding adhesive was not used or approved by Nissan. The welds were poor, not in locations prescribed by Nissan, and the wrong weld types. And improper corrosion protection was implied. Now remember back to the beginning where I said in my 10-point, you notice that we're looking at welds, we're looking at weld locations, following the OEM, and corrosion protection and all that. That's why I'm saying this. So the evidence that repairs in the trunk floor were not performed in a workmanlike manner. Sprayable seam sealer was used instead of brushable. Pumpable seam sealer, and the seam sealer was not refinished. And it shows the repairs were all around sloppy. And you kind of get the idea, $105,000. So it's just a recommendation, right? Alaska Airlines Flight 261. This one's near and dear to my heart. For those of you from the Northwest, you'll probably remember this one. In 2000, January 31st of 2000, a Alaska Airlines flight just kind of dropped out of the sky. So I get curious when things crash because I'm a forensic guy. So I start to look and go, okay, well, what happened? Well, they said inadequate lubrication and end check place. So watch how this worked from the NTSB. Mechanic who performed the last lubrication, it was revealed that task took about an hour, whereas the aircraft manufacturer estimated the task should take 4 hours. So the tech did it in an hour, and it should take 4 hours. Laboratory test indicated that the excessive wear of the jack screw assembly could not have accumulated in just one 4-month period. So basically, this has been a pattern. Therefore, the NTSB concluded that more than just the last lubrication caused the problem. And then they did an end plate check after the aircraft in 1997. It did not uncover excessive wear. And the investigation found Alaska Airlines had fabricated or made tools to be used in the end plate check that did not meet the specs. So they went, well, we don't want to buy the tool from Boeing or McDonnell Douglas. We're going to turn around and we're going to make our own. It'll be good enough. Okay. So the case extended. So Alaska Airlines had gone to the NTSB or FAA and said, we want to extend the lubrication levels, and they granted it, except they took that for the end plate checks, not just for the lubrication. Long story short, a plane drops out of the sky, and huge lawsuits and everything like that because they didn't follow the proper lubrication schedule and tooling prescribed by Boeing. So but that's the recommendation. They recommend that. So not following recommendations obviously should be construed as what's required. So back to the quality checks. These 10 things again. The pre-health check scan, procedure at the time of the estimate, give it to the tech, make sure they follow it, do proper welds and weld destruct test, proper corrosion protection, use of your QC sheet, proper refinish, proper use of the intake, and proper vehicle protection. So here's what we see. Now, these are the next 2 pages. And again, everybody will get a copy of this PowerPoint. I invite you to go walk your shop today, or as soon as you can get a hold of this, or take your camera and take a picture of this right now. So here's what we see. First of all, you have a quality control sheet or process. Are your people doing it the way it was designed? Here's what we see. We see that people walk into the shop. They have a quality control sheet that's not filled out properly. It's still in paint. It's still not filled out, but if miraculously at the end it gets pencil whipped. 200 amp welder is not being used when appropriate. Now so your Miller 170 is not a 200 amp welder, even though it's a 220 volt welder. Go look and see your 200 amp welder. Many of them are specified by the OEM, and your techs are not using them. Not reviewing the OEM when you're procedures, when you write the estimate and follow them, just watch that. Cavity wax not being used enough, call your jobber. And I know a lot of your jobbers are on the call here today. call your jobber and ask them, hey, how many cans did I buy in the last 60 days? And how many techs do you have? Divide that by the weeks and see if you're doing corrosion protection correctly. Weld test not being done, equipment not being maintained, or the welder tips on the squeeze type not dressed or no new in the shop. Now, your suppliers will tell you, and I could call them right now, and they will tell me that they don't sell you nearly enough tips for your squeeze type resistant spot welder. In fact, if you're going to put a whole side on a car, why don't you buy a new set of tips for it and bill it on the job? If you're not doing these 7 things correctly, you are in jeopardy of any one of these things could put you out of business quickly. It's high risk. Now, so we call these the big rocks. Let's go to what we call medium rocks. So check-in sheets not being done fully, like radio codes and that kind of stuff, like on the AC. Incomplete frame measurements, like you're only measuring 6 points rather than 8, like the manufacturers recommend. You're using copper weld through primer instead of zinc. In fact, I'm not opposed to copper weld through primer, except no OEMs recommend it. So there's not one OEM manufacturer that says that you can use it, yet a lot of shops use it on everything. You're not following OEM. Epoxy paint not present. You should be using a lot of epoxy paint underneath windshields and urethane set glass, under seam sealer and all that, because you can't use self-etching primer, which a lot of shops are. Vehicle protection not complete, parts and seats and that kind of stuff. Painting under urethane set glass. If you're painting base coat, clear coat under windshields, you're doing it wrong. We did a class on Collision Hub about that. Self-etching primer does not belong in the body department. If it's in there, it's going to go under seam sealer, and the seam sealer won't stick. Remember that brown Honda? And your electronic file not fully documented. Now, these right here, these are medium risk. Maybe they wouldn't put you out of business, but man, if you got these 15 things dialed in. So if you want a marching list of something that you can go do today, and I mean today, so you spend an hour with me, go spend an hour in your shop looking to see what's there, you're going to see that you've got at least one of these things, and probably 12 out of 15 you're not doing right. Not a problem. Just pick 1 or 2, work on them, and just get that as the things to do. Okay? So the only difference between 2 repairs is what you choose to do for free. There's only one way to repair a vehicle, and that is follow the OEM. Now, I got to give credit to that. That's Rex Dunn. Rex Dunn used to own an organization in Ohio. So for those of you kind of from the Midwest Ohio area, you probably know Rex. He used to own a company called True to Form, and he's currently with Gerber Collision. But he said that, and I was like, yeah, you know what? You're exactly right. There's only one way to fix it. Follow the OEM. Now, if we're going to follow the OEM, that would mean we'd have to get the OEM information when we write the estimate so we can give it to the tech so the tech can follow it and we can do our quality control. So here's just some other shots over the bow. This might be your first experience with VECO and what I'm about. Some of you might have seen me before, but we do a lot of different things. We talk about, and each one of these is a 1 to 3 hour class. So we talk about the bulletproof file, 10 points of quality, 15 points to stay in business. Well, I just gave you the 15 points to stay in business, but we talk about all the innuendos of that for about an hour and a half. Quality control, do it the easy way. Post-repair inspection, that's the one you just did. Vehicle intake in the process, researching OEM information, how do you do it? OEM certification, is that right for you? DRP, is that right for you? And third-party monthly validation and mentoring, what does that look like? So that being said, you said that I had 45 minutes, and I'm at 39 minutes, so I came in pretty good. So I'd love to have any questions that anybody might have, or did I just barrage you with too much? And if nobody has anything that they will have a question about, I'd love to know from anybody on this call, what is 1 or 2 takeaways that you just got from this that you can go to work in your shop with right now? Okay? So go ahead and type in, or Melissa, you can handle all this. I'm hoping somebody responds and says something that, and I'm hoping like is this thing on,
We're on. We're waiting. Come on, guys.
Anybody, what'd you get? One thing that you heard newly today that you could take back into your shop. And by the way, we don't have to say who you are, but your question and your comment may help somebody else too.
Got a lot of shy people. And I will follow up with everybody on the call and send a copy of this presentation as Mark mentioned it. And I'll send Mark's information with it as well. So if you want to follow up after the call, you can do that.
Boy, there's no questions. Wow.
Not one. You're just very thorough, Mark.
Well, so Melissa, what did you think?
I thought it was excellent. I thought it was a lot of information. I think I'm looking for more. The bulletproof file, I think, is something everybody, I think, would be interested in. And I do think that at least those two lists, if nothing else, the shops should go back and look at those. So I'll send it out as soon as we finish this presentation, so we can get started with that.
Okay, and then I'm going to just say something real quick. So on the screen right now is my office number, and then also my email. So feel free to call me at my office. If I'm not there, obviously leave a message. I will get back to you. You can go to our website, but you can get a hold of me directly through my email right there, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. So thank you everybody for being here. Thanks for your commitment to quality and the process. And the biggest thing is, there's post-repair inspections. You just don't want to get caught in one. They're not pretty.
Yep. Well, Mark, I'm getting a lot of great comments. Thank you. Very, great information. If I ever need a body repair on my car, I want Mark to repair it.
I don't repair cars, but I'll refer you to a shop that can.
Well, there you go. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mark. We'll be in touch with future training opportunities, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.